Okay, all right, set up. You ready?
I think so.
Okay, so you wanna start it off?
No, this is your thing. I don't know what are we doing.
What do you mean? This is my thing.
This is your
Oh
thing.
no! Stop. Why are you acting like you don't know what you're doing right now?
No, because like I said, that's your life right there. I don't know.
All right, hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm excited today because we have another power couple tip for you. So I've got my husband Kofi here.
Power couple.
And we are going to talk about another tip or habit that we employ that we think is useful, strategic, helpful in preserving your marriage and also achieving your goals and doing that together in unison.
Should I tell them what it is?
Go ahead, please tell them what it is.
All right, so we often talk about reading books and rereading books, but now as a couple, we like to pick books and have sort of our own book reviews that we do together. So I'll read it, she'll read it, and sometimes we'll buy two books, and sometimes we'll buy one book and both read the same book. But what it does for us is several things. I mean, I don't know where should we start?
We should start with the fact that we are coordinated today. Did you know that? We should start with the fact that
You must have seen what I put on.
we are color coordinated. So that was a nice touch. We're on the same page. Okay, that's a great pun for this power couple tip. We're on the same page. So yes, as Kofi's explained, we have this this commitment that we've made to share a reading syllabus over the course of the year. And so we make sure that we select books that we think are in alignment with our goals, and we both commit to reading them so that way we both have access to the same tools to implement in executing our vision for ourselves individually and for us as a couple and for our family.
And we don't often select the books together. One of us will see something, it'll catch our eyes, or we'll hear about it, or be recommended, and we just order it. Hop on Amazon these days, you order it, it shows up, start reading it, and if we think it's worthwhile, we immediately tell the other person, or we just order another one right away. Hey, let's both read this, or as soon as I'm done, you read it, or the night you're not reading it, I'll be reading it, because that's another thing. We always keep a couple of books by the bed, and I always keep a couple of books in my desk in my office, because it's great, again, as a philosophy to read, but also reread a lot of these books.
So for sure, if it's a book that I read and I liked, and I feel like, even if I'm just a few chapters into it, I think there's another book, Atomic Habits, I got a few chapters into it, and I just told Kofi I'm sending a book to your office. So Amazon order delivered straight to his office. So, So book of the day that we want to talk about. This is a great one. Now, usually, what's funny about this is usually we both purchase our own discrete copies of the book, but this is a book that Kofi got at a real estate conference, and you can talk more about that. But he only had the one copy, and so he read it, and I actually read the same copy, which was interesting because for the first time, I was able to see what he's highlighting in the book, and he was able to see what I'm highlighting in the book, and that was just the interesting reveal. I was like, oh, you thought that was important? Yeah. Oh.
It was good. It was a really good revelation. So I went to a conference called Leaders in Luxury. It was a conference in Florida, top brokers from around the country, and they gave this out as a gift, which was really nice. They usually give some sort of, empowerment book or business building book, and this happened to be the book of choice. So I read it, and there were definitely a lot of nuggets that were in there. So I handed it off to Mimi so she could check it out as well as sort of part of our strategy. And then when I started rereading it, I got a chance to see some of her notes, which was very interesting because, there are some things that I think are important and that I would highlight that are more impactful to me. I have what I call Kofiism, called listen with selfish ears or read with selfish eyes. So you read with, looking for what's important to you and moving the needle in your life. But it was very cool to see what she put stars next to. Sometimes it was a star next to what I had already underlined, and sometimes it was a totally separate passage. But it was great because it gave me some insight into some of the things that mattered to her or sort of jumped off the pages to her. So this is the book that we have both read recently. The author is Charlie Harary. I believe I'm saying his last name correctly. And it's kind of cool because in our day of social media, I was able to tag him when I mentioned reading the book online, and we connected via social media. He sent me a few messages. I've sent him some. Now I'm following his page, and he follows mine as well. So it's kind of cool to be able to make a big world small, you know, via social media. But this was it was a good book. It was about really those little tweaks that you make, those small things that you can change to help you come closer to unlocking your greatness or unlocking your potential. And that's something that I talk about a lot in life. My focus and finish mantra is really about the small steps that lead to your big goals. And that's one of my mantras really for life is how do we unlock the potential that we have. So this is the book.
Yeah, go ahead. Come a little closer.
All right. So I think the other thing about reading a book and then having your spouse read the same book or reading it simultaneously, it does a couple of things for us. One, when we have our Power Couple meetings, we're already getting closer to being on the same page in terms of our motivations and our goals.
I agree.
And then by reading the same books, a lot of the philosophies sort of double down on what we're focused on. So when I bring up a different strategy even for my business, or I bring up a different strategy for us as a couple, because she's read some of the same books, it resonates a lot faster. And then probably the most important part is when we read a lot of the same things, we're just crazy good at those couples games, right? Categories, charades.
Which is
you
also
don't want
really
to see
critically important.
You don't want to see
very
it.
important. Very important. How can you be a power couple if you can't win at categories? How can you be a power couple? Good point. That's
very
a good
helpful.
point.
Very helpful.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about some of the things that stood out to me in this book. So it's a little bit of a review built in. Not only are we encouraging you to maybe pick up the habit of picking a couple of books that you can get into with your partner, but also this book in particular, Unlocking Greatness. I think it had a lot of good points about mindset, which is something that's really important. It's a lifelong process, a lifelong journey of developing your mindset to be positive and constructive. But something that really stood out to me in this book that I hadn't really heard phrased or read phrased in this way was the idea of be, do, have. So I know you also, I think you posted about it.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
Yes, I wrote a post about it on Instagram about that concept of be, do, have. And he takes a look at it because often in life, we have the do part first. We do, and then we have, because that's the fruits of the labor. And then finally, we feel like we can define ourselves as the be, right? So do, then have, then be. But it makes for sometimes just a long, arduous journey to really get the recognition and really even live in that space, in the fullness of the space that you're actually already deserving of being in, right? So I think that was a big sort of paradigm shift that we took away from the book.
Right, for sure. And this is interesting because this is something that has come up in other conversations that I've had in some different forums that I'm a part of. And the idea of imposter syndrome. This is a problem that really plagues a lot of people. And I think that this conceptual model kind of actually begins to solve the problem of imposter syndrome, because you're doing and you're doing and you're doing to a subjective level, to have to a subjective level. And it's never, you never kind of reach the point where you feel entitled to be.
Right.
Or you're at risk of not reaching the point where you feel entitled to be, whatever it is that you're pursuing. Yeah. So I think that when you change the model and you decide that you're going to be something first, and you are that thing, and so you actually then you take actions that are in alignment with that identity that you own, then you have the fruits of that product. Just changing the order in your mind of your achievement process, I think is so helpful, and it really does address, like I said, this issue of imposter syndrome that so many people struggle with, women in particular. I know it's something in the women's forums and networks that I'm a part of that's a constant part of the conversation.
I think a lot in metaphors and analogies, and as you were talking about that, I was thinking about the idea of running a 100-meter race, right? And I think when you're saying imposter syndrome and even things that are so merit-based, you're running a 100-meter race. When you get to the 50-meter mark, most of us feel like I'm a 50-meter runner because I've run 50 meters. No, you're a 100-meter runner. Exactly. As a matter of fact, as soon as you step on the line to run the race, you are a sprinter, right? So that's the B. Before you've run one step, you know that you've trained, you're ready for this, you're a sprinter. And so I think that's part of that, again, just that mental shift and how it's expressed and how we look at things and how we approach things. Approach it as be who you are, and the rest kind of falls in line, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And the great thing about both of us having read this is that now with this new mindset, I have someone to help me in that accountability process. I have someone to reinforce it when I'm trying to now translate this to what's developmentally appropriate for our kids. And explaining to them, you know, you are a soccer player, you are an A student, you are, you know, a successful, you know, martial artist, martial arts, a little micro expert. So, and then, you know, it's great too to be able to explain to them that because you are these things, like if you are a great soccer player, what would we expect from a great soccer player in terms of their own behavior and habits? We would expect to see you self-initiating practice, or we'd expect to see you putting in a little time, extra time before or after practice, because that's who you are. And then once, you know, you are being what you say you are, once you are doing the activities in alignment with that identity, then you will have the other, you know, the spoils of that, or of that effort. So you will have, for example, a state cup championship, because it's from that process. So
I like it.
Anything else?
I just want to know if I get to come back to your show.
You'll get to come back. Oh, look, I just want to point out this little, it's my little Luna necklace. Luna.
Niece.
If you saw my best of 2019 video, you'll see I became an auntie last year. I'm so excited. So little shout out to my baby niece.
There it
Luna.
is. All right, cool.
What do we have to do today? I have some errands.
You have some errands?
I have some errands. You wanna
I have
run
some
some errands?
CVS.
Exactly.